Hello, welcome to Viewpoints, brought to you by Equiture, the leading provider in public safety software and training. And we also have some really amazing products that we have just released and are getting ready to release. My name is Cherie Bartram, and I will be your host today. A little bit about us before we get started. We are an international leader in public safety training and technology with products geared toward providing tools to help responders stay safe and educated. For those of you who are new to our podcast, we do offer monthly podcasts with a variety of topics geared toward public safety, as well as monthly webinars. And in addition to that, we have a diverse offering of training courses through our apprentice platform. I encourage you to check that out as well. I'm excited today to introduce you to my daughter, Riannah. She is joining us today to share some of her experiences with the topic today of fear. Most of us can probably think of times when fear has helped us make smart choices, or perhaps other times when it has kept us from living fully, or even making choices that has altered our life course. Maybe that alteration has been positive or negative. Riannah will be bringing her perspective to the discussion and will wrap that around the other examples of long-term impact in our professional and personal lives as adults. Riannah, thank you for joining me today. I guess I'm probably going to owe you a beverage from your favorite establishment before school next week, yes?
Yes, for sure. That'll be the payment that we'll do.
All right. Riannah is a senior in high school, so I'm pretty excited to see where life will lead her. And we have watched fear control her and have her watched fear overcome her. And recently we were on vacation in Lake Cumberland in Kentucky. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. And as I sat there just lounging around on the inner tube in the water, I got to thinking about all the people who had huge fear of the water. It was one of the most relaxing vacations I've ever been on. And I thought, wow, all these people who have such fear of the water that they would never go on a houseboat, they missed out. And I was imagining all the joy, exercise, social connections, experiences that are missed by fear. People who would never do a vacation like that because it's on the water. They avoid swimming and boating and beach activities. And what a shame that is when people allow fear to rule their action. But sometimes, fear is good. It serves as a crucial survival mechanism, as well as a motivating force when it's in proportion to the actual threat or challenge. So we have some really good examples to share with you, both in the 911 air arena and with Riannah, things that she's overcome that I hope for those of you who may be looking at, what you want to do, that you can use these experiences to help guide you. So when we look at fear in the work environment, fear of a professional failure can motivate you for skill development and continuous learnings. When you think about, gosh, I don't want to fail. So you keep pushing yourself to learn more and more until you have mastered that skill that you're afraid of. But look at it in a personal situation. And I'm going to have Riannah talk about an experience that she had when the first time she sang on stage. How was that for you, Riannah? Was that super exciting, or did you have a little bit of fear?
Yeah, I was definitely a little bit nervous, both for myself and then for how I would be perceived by like other people. So I was scared for myself because I was like, oh, how am I gonna do well? Is something gonna happen to my voice while I'm on stage? Because a lot of stuff can happen when you're put under pressure like that. Even though I knew everything I was singing and everything like that, I was still nervous, and I was like, okay, but what if they don't like what I'm singing, or they don't like how I sound when I'm singing? And it really was overwhelming. I ended up doing fine, but I was overwhelmed with like what could go wrong instead of like what could go right.
I like that. What could go wrong instead of what could go right? That's the same with the fear of public speaking. Uh, in 911, there's times when we have to go out into the public and, well, man, what if I say something wrong? What if, what are they going to think of me? Especially if we take a promotion. Um, but there's a point in our lives as human where we don't always think like that. That's another reason I wanted Rihanna to come with me. She has been dancing since she was 3, and we laugh when she was pretty new, one of her very first recitals. The other little 3, 4-year old that was with her, scared to death, got up there on stage in front of all those people in the audience and just froze and ran out the stage. And for Rihanna, that was like, knowing my glory, and she danced that little dance of the 3-year-old as a solo. People were, clapping and cheering, and my husband and I are like, oh. As the years went by, we figured that's what changed her from. She never really seemed to have a fear of dancing solo. What do you think about that, Rihanna?
Yeah, I think because it was something I still very much enjoy doing. I didn't, and I wasn't doing it for other people when I got out of the mindset and got out of my head that like I wasn't dancing for other people and I was more dancing because it made me happy. I was able to really enjoy what I was doing more. So as I did more solos growing up and still doing them, I was able to find more joy in what I was doing, which made it not so much about the people, but about like how I felt and how I could express myself and my emotions through how I was dancing.
So take that back to the profession in public safety, and you have to do a presentation. Um, this is a career that you may really love. So when you're talking about it, just talk about something that you love. I've been accused of you're never afraid when you talk about 911. And that's true. You could actually put me in front of any crowd and I could talk about 911 because it's always been a passion. It was really hard for me to leave the PSAP when I did because I loved what I did. I wasn't afraid of the people that I was talking in front of just because, like Rihanna said, it was something that I really enjoyed. Other fears that may come into play when we are talking about personal things is parental fears that would lead to appropriate child safety measures. So what does that mean as a parent? All right, well, I'll tell you, as a parent, in public safety, we have a lot of extra education, right? I mean, there's National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. There's all the things we learn on how to keep our kids safe. There's all the calls we take when children have been injured or, trafficked. All of that training we have. Sometimes it doesn't matter, and we take calls about the kids who've gotten involved in drugs, and then all of a sudden we become hyper vigilant with our kids. And sometimes we can take appropriate child safety measures, and sometimes we smother them. Right, Rihanna? Yeah, she's got to answer me now. Uh, you've been through it. You've been through the smothering. You watched us try really hard to release you that first time you went to. So we live in Michigan. That first time we let her drive to Detroit by herself. Well, that was really, really hard on us as parents. How was that for you, Rihanna, knowing how we were feeling at home?
Um, at first, when I first asked if I could go to Detroit, I wasn't fully thinking about it. And as I asked the question and then I was thinking about it after, I was like, oh wow, My parents are both in public safety, and I just asked them to go to a really dangerous city without them there. So, then I was like, well, that's not, I can see, especially because I've heard the stories that like have happened, and I know, oh, there's a lot of bad stuff that happens in the world, but it's different when you're the one who's hearing about it and you're experiencing all the calls and all the scared people and everything that happens. And Detroit's not also the safest city. There are a lot of bad things that can happen in Detroit and anywhere, but going there alone, I did feel a little bit guilty about asking if I could go with my friends because I knew it was like a stressor for my parents. So, yeah, I did feel a little bad about it.
Well, so then we have to look at fear as a friend or a foe. Public safety parents, not that it's just public safety parents, but public safety parents do have this higher degree of knowledge and vigilance over what some may look at as that's a simple request. There's going to be lots of kids there, let her go. Detroit is a big city, just like other big cities across the country. There are some extremely safe places, lots of people around that kept it safe, and she has been well educated. So we have to look at that fear that we as parents have. Did we do everything we could to educate her on how to be vigilant? So if we use that fear that we have correctly, it was a friend or a foe because if we had held her in and sheltered her, there's a time that you say yes and there's a time that you can say no, but you have to make you have to decide, when those times are. So I talked about did we show Riannah everything she needs to know? Did we teach her right? Just because she's 16, going on 17, senior in high school, does that mean she's always going to be safe? No, but we did teach her to trust her instincts. And she came home the other day, right, it's a couple months ago now, uh, and she used fear to keep herself safe in a simple exchange. And Riannah, I'd like you to share that story so that our viewers can know that when you get that gut reaction, sometimes it's really important to listen to it. So go ahead with your story.
I don't I don't even remember what I was doing. I think I was on my way home from school. It was rainy, it was cloudy outside, and I was behind this truck that had a bunch of stuff on the back of it. So I'm driving a little distance behind it just because if something were to fall out, then I didn't want to get hit. And ironically enough, something did end up falling out. So I pulled over because it was in the middle of the road. It was a huge stroller. So I grabbed the stroller and I pulled it off to the side of the road. There was like a little area where I was where cars could pull up, and I set it down, and the truck turned around that it dropped out of. So I thought it was a girl who was just bringing stuff home. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll just wait to make sure everything's okay and see if they need help with anything. So the truck pulls over, and I quickly realized that it was a guy. And I was like, it wasn't automatically that it was a guy that I was extremely uncomfortable. It was just like, okay, well, I wouldn't have fully stayed as much if I knew that, just because I was alone and I wasn't fully comfortable with that. But gets out of his car and he's like, oh, thank you for getting this out of the road. It's very sweet. Started complimenting me. It was a very weird encounter. Started complimenting me and asked me if I would help him get a stroller out of the back of his truck, or that was in his back seat, and I can just like help him like break it down so it didn't happen again. And I was like, no, I really have to get home. And he was like, oh, okay, I just can't figure out how to close the stroller. And I was like, yeah, I don't really know how to close strollers either. So he was like, oh, okay. So he picked up the stroller and started smashing it on the concrete very aggressively. And I was like, oh, it threw me off and I didn't really know how to react. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go. And he was at this point just stomping and kicking this stroller on the ground, and I was kind of really uncomfortable. And I can't even say what the smell was, but it wasn't a good smell. So I thought of like alcohol, or he was on drugs or something. I didn't know for sure. So I was like, quickly but safely tried to get back to my car, which the door was open too. So I kept so I was like, I'm gonna go. So I walked, and then I made sure that he wasn't following behind me. So I got in my car and I locked my doors. And then I looked behind me into the lane that I was gonna enter for traffic, and I made sure that there were cars behind me so that I wasn't followed back to my house. And I wasn't. So I got back home and I told my parents, and I was like, this is super duper weird. So, yeah.
And we thought, wow, that's such a bizarre encounter. She said she had told us when it happened. She said as soon as he got out of the car, he started making comments to me about how beautiful I was. And she goes, Mom, that I just felt weird. Well, as a mom, I'm like, well, you are beautiful. But that's kind of an odd thing, for someone to say like that while they're trying to pick up something that just fell out of their truck. Um, so so we have to learn when to listen to that instinctive fear and react to it. And, when fear is bad, when it becomes problematic, if it's disproportionate to the actual risk or if it prevents reasonable actions, so then it becomes a problem. So when you have paralyzing anxiety about a job interview that prevents career advancement, gosh, what if I fail? What else? I can't put in for that supervisor position. I'll never get it. I can't put in for that kind of a job. They won't want me. Well, who am I? Um, or worse than that, even is what if I succeed? Well, I can't handle that. Um, if the fear of failure is so intense that it leads to procrastination, and so then you avoid new opportunities altogether. You don't move forward, you don't move backward, you just sit and do nothing. And that's the other reason I brought Rihanna out because um personal examples. She's got them all, and we've talked about this. So, like those of you are like, "Oh, what a bad mom! You're calling her out in front of the whole nation." She knows what we're talking about with job interviews. She's done really great. She's been forward and aggressive, and I'd really like to apply here. And then there's been other opportunities after she's put an application on. We're sitting there at this establishment, and I said, "Hey, are you going to go talk to the manager?" And she said, "Right." In the 911 field, there's so many things that you can do to prepare for advancement. I remember the very first time I put in for a promotion. It was actually, I always wanted to be a supervisor, not because I wanted the title. The title was never important to me. It was, I really felt like I could make the difference. I could do something great. I had such huge respect for the people um, and the job that we did that I thought, oh, if I could be boss, queen for the day, whatever. My friends used to make fun of me. I could really be helpful. I could do great things. Um, so I remember the first time that I was told no, and I said, well, what? It's a crush. And I said, well, why? And they said, well, you're too young. Well, too young. That's the only reason. So I made sure that the next time I put in for a promotion, that it didn't matter what my age was, that I had I had had enough experiences, how we talked about earlier, that you overcome that fear, but I could have let that let that fear of rejection just paralyze me. The other fear that some people have in the work environment is the fear of technology changes. Changes in the 911 industry are coming so fast. And it's like, whoa, what? Video 911? I don't want to be in the video. I quit. I'm not gonna do that. Um, we can adapt and we can grow, and there's always gonna be movement and different things coming at us, especially in today's age. Some of it is so exciting. Um, some of the tools and technology that we have at Equiture that are coming out make me sad that I'm not a director anymore and to have access to them. But the fear of this technology prevents people from even trying it, from moving forward, from adapting. And so they stay stagnant until they're forced to move forward. So those are some examples of what happens when fear becomes crippling and we miss those opportunities for personal growth. We lose resilience and coping skills. Your career kind of becomes stagnant and unfulfilling just because you're nervous about change. So, so Rihanna, that job interview I was telling you, that we talked about, hey, are you going to talk to him? It's kind of different than anything you've ever done yet. Not, right? So when you think of yourself and stepping forward in that job, what do you think it is that um has caused you to have so much fear that you don't want to move forward?
I think it's just like making that first step. It's like I know how they're going to react when I say, hey, just following up, I did apply. And I know everything. I know how they're going to react. I know what they're going to say. And be like, oh, okay, we'll schedule an interview. Like, I know all the things that are going to happen. It's just taking that first step for me is always so nerve wracking because I get the what ifs in my head. Like, oh, what if they decide that they actually don't want any more like people to work there? Or what if they decide that I don't meet the qualifications? Or like, what if they change all of their rules so I don't qualify to work there anymore? So I get in my head and I overthink all the possible options of like how it could go wrong. Again, like I said, how it could go wrong instead of what could go right.
And that for a lot of kids in your age, junior and senior year in high school, that's also what's stopping them from their future for college or a tech school. Would you say that's accurate too?
Yes.
That fear. How would you think that people should overcome that from your perspective?
Um, it's a lot easier when you say it than actually doing it. But honestly, just starting with little things that you can like put yourself out there, but not so you're pushing out of your comfort zone, but not so much that it's like crippling and you feel like you can't move or you can't like do anything else. Finding spots in your life where you can put yourself out there more so that in the work experience, like I know when I get older, I'm not going to be able to just be like, oh, I'll just like wait it out. Cause like if I need a job and I need to apply for when I need to apply for my colleges, which I need to also start doing. I need to be able to talk to people and I need to be able to communicate what I want. And I think it could be through little things. So yeah, just putting yourself out there more, I think.
And this is really no different than when we're applying at the workforce, as adult, out of school. How do we put ourselves out there? Or we're stuck in a job and we're just completely unfulfilled. Maybe you're in a small dispatch center and you want to work in a big one. Like, what if I can't do it? What if they don't hire me? What if they already have enough people? Let me stop you right there if that's where you're at. If they already have enough people today, tomorrow they won't. So, don't give up. Shortages in PSAPs and dispatch centers are nationwide. They may be full staff today, but, stay the course because tomorrow is another day. But declining to pursue those promotions, bigger jobs, those leadership roles, um, that's the after effects of fear, and it can alter your life unnecessarily. Gavin de Becker in The Gift of Fear argues that genuine fear is distinct from worry or anxiety. Genuine fear is a survival signal that allows us to process information faster than a conscious thought. So, so in his book, if you haven't read it, it's a really, really good book. The key concepts in his book is that true fear appears in the presence of real danger, not the danger that we make up in our mind. Our mind can be really powerful both ways. The mind really can paralyze us with procrastination, but that's not true fear. True fear appears in the presence of real danger and quickly dissipates when safety is restored. Intuitive fear, that's what Riannah had with the whole stroller incident. It often picks up on subtle cues that our conscious mind hasn't even processed yet. So when that guy got out of the truck and started saying, "Hey, beautiful, hey, you want to come into my truck and help me get this stroller put together?" Like, her conscious mind was quick. I was like, whoa, that's not normal. I think I should go. Um, those are intuitive fears that we all have to help us with our survival. But learning to distinguish the difference between a productive fear and a unproductive worry is really key to our professional development and professional growth, as well as personal development, personal growth, trusting those gut instincts about people and situations, especially when it comes to our personal safety. So, what kind of things can we do personally, like students, if they have a lot of anxiety about an exam, they can study harder, leads to better grades. Maybe you'll learn the subject more. Public speaking. Rihanna's older brother, he's actually been on a couple podcasts with us. When he does public speaking and when he teaches, he would tell me, "Hey, Mom, I have to get ready to teach this new topic. I practiced a lot." And he goes, "I'm sure you do that too." And I'm like, "Not really." Well, because we're talking about 911. And when it comes to topics that I might not be super familiar with, like some certain technologies, I'll study that. But mostly it just rolls right off my tongue. But public speaking, rehearsing extensively results in a more polished presentation. And athletes, they're gonna train more rigorously before competitions. And we prepare for emergencies before the natural disaster comes. We prepare for emergencies before we have an officer down so that it's easier. We don't like it. We don't like doing those scenario trainings. We don't like thinking about that bad stuff that happens. But that's how we overcome fear. So when it happens, we're ready. Last year, I went to Rihanna's dance instructor and I said, "Hey, I want to surprise Rihanna with a dance. Let's not tell her. I want to do a solo at her recital." And the dance instructor's like, "We want to surprise her?" Yeah. Her dance instructor is amazing. But she likes doing solos that makes people cry because that's when you know you really have them. Yeah, so that's what we did. I practiced this dance for a whole year, and Rihanna had no idea. So I get up there on stage, and I was nervous. I'm telling you, I must have practiced this dance hundreds of times, and I had given myself spots in case I got up there and forgot. But I was thinking hundreds of times, there's no way I'm going to forget. And the lights were dark. And I got up there and I got in position. And they'd gotten Riannah into the audience. Her youth pastor had his camera on her, not me, because we wanted to see her reaction. And it was perfect. She was appropriately surprised. But I got up there and I started dancing this dance and stress and fear of what if she doesn't like it? What if I'm embarrassing her? What if she's mad at me? Overtook me. And my feet didn't know what they were doing. And I just kept moving. And then I got my cue spot and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be doing this. Uh, the only people who knew that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing was myself and the dance teacher. Rihanna thought it was great. But um, fear can really control you. But what is the difference between fear and
Yes, it's happened multiple times, whether it's over simple things like the first day of school or bigger things like presenting in front of my class. So, yeah.
so do you know the difference between fear,
Like,
fear and stress characteristics?
I would like to say I do. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I think
sometimes I think we don't. Go ahead.
um sometimes it can feel like both and you and it can you can feel like you're feeling fear when you're actually just being stressed out over a situation, over a test. Um, and sometimes you can be genuinely scared of what's going to happen. But I think that they're commonly can be like traded in for one another.
Very good. Fear is specific in response to a threat or a challenge. It's often immediate or hooked to something time related, and it can motivate direct action to address the source of the fear, but it typically is gone when the threat is resolved. Whereas stress is chronic and ongoing. It may lack anything specific like, Mom, what's wrong? I don't know. I just feel stressed out because there's nothing. There's no addressable cause. It may or may not cause us to respond in a certain way. The circumstances that we're in at that moment improve and the stress characteristic persists. And it can also show up physically through tension, sleep issues, health problems, where again, like I said, fear subsides when that threat is gone. So know the difference if you're having if you have true fear or if it's a stress characteristic, and that's important because now you know how to address it. Where stress, we use stress to there's different ways we can address stress. When you overcome fear in a professional setting, do your due diligence. If you're making a career choice, a career change, really look into that career change. Look into the financial impact. When I retired, I thought we had done that. I wouldn't have changed why I retired out of the PSEP. I retired because my then 13-year-old was she was turning 13, and it was necessary to get her picked up after school because there was no other place. So that retirement decision, I wouldn't change. But when we looked at it financially, it made sense. But then everything crashed. Groceries went up, gas went up. The world changed. Sometimes you don't have any control over those, but you do your due diligence first. You do the best you can. You maintain healthy skepticism about things that just are too good to be true opportunities, and you set appropriate boundaries based on your past experiences. When you're putting boundaries in place for physical protection, maintain that awareness. I know I've traveled a lot for my career in 911 and even with Equiture. I've always been aware of potentially dangerous situations. We went to a conference here not too long ago with a city that was deemed highly dangerous, and we had a blast. We walked all over, but we walked in groups. So we were always being aware of where we were. We trusted our instincts about the people or the environment, and nothing ever felt off because we didn't put ourselves in that situation. And we wondered, how do people get in that situation? Well, I'm just going to run 4 blocks down the road by myself to get a drink from my favorite coffee shop. How wise is that if you're in an area that's dangerous? You got to take reasonable precautions without being paranoid. So, Riannah, as a soon to be college student, how do you think you're ready, or how do you think you can get yourself ready to prepare for those protections and overcoming those fears, like we talked about, both personally and professionally?
I think that I feel like I'm just gonna have to be in the environment because I feel like I have not put myself in situations, but I know I've been in situations where I've had to really think things through and think about how I should act or what I should say or how I should respond to certain things. But I think I really will just have to be like in the college environment and knowing my surroundings to really realize like what I should be doing and preparing for and like making myself more aware of when I'm actually in that environment.
Yeah, I think that's good. And for us, we have to trust our instincts, whether we're talking about personally or professionally, about peoples and environments that feel off, and just maintain those awareness about potentially dangerous situations, and recognizing red flags in relationships or business dealing. Sometimes you can see the red flags and think, "Oh, no, that'll be fine." All these things make a difference when you're overcoming fear. The key through all of these different applications is learning to evaluate whether fear is serving us constructively or holding us back unnecessarily, to develop the wisdom to know the difference so that we can enjoy a full professional life or not. Enjoy every place we're supposed to be, and a satisfying personal life, or grow bitter with the things that could have done, could have been, and aren't. I remember fear isn't the villain in our life. It's when we let unrealistic or disproportionate fears run the show that we really get ourselves in trouble. Gosh, Rihanna, thanks for talking with us today. Do you have anything to add for our audience?
Just not letting fear like control everything that you do. Like you said, it can stop you from a lot of opportunities that happen and you can really miss out on like experiences, both good and bad. Sometimes your intuition is correct that you should be missing out on some opportunities, but I think that sometimes people really miss out, like you said at the beginning of the podcast. People really miss out on things because they let fear control them, whether it's a vacation or applying for a work experiment experience or colleges or anything you can apply it to your life. Fear can really have a big impact, so if you let it define how you respond to situations in like a bad way, you can really miss things.
All right, thank you. Okay, 911 professionals, public safety professionals, go forth, go for that job, go for that promotion, learn more about the part in public safety that makes you passionate, and let this career just lead your life, because it is truly an awesome career. And thanks for joining us today. We'll see you again later. Have a super terrific day. Bye, everyone.